like Tom said, if you have any questions, go for it, throw a question in. Although I know some of you sent questions in over the last couple of days. Tom would have sent out a wee link. So if you've already done that, then brilliant, I'll get to them. And if not, I will just have a glance at the chat the whole time around. So look, kicking off, the big thing we want to remember, I suppose, when we're talking about supplements, is this idea of a food first approach. And I suppose the one mistake that we tend to see with people where they see the shiny supplements and they want to buy them and they want to purchase them and they want to get something that's going to really improve their performance. And they forget that what we did 2 weeks ago, that nutrition stuff, the basics of your food, that's got to be the base of your pyramid. This idea of we start with a balanced diet and then we go from there. So we start with a balanced diet, then we can look at the stuff around sports nutrition, our carbohydrate to fuel our performance, our protein to recover after our sessions. And only when we've got those two first building blocks in place can we start thinking about supplements, okay? Unfortunately, some people have this pyramid upside down. So they look at supplements first and that's the most important thing. And sports nutrition and a balanced diet almost becomes an add-on. So my big message today, while we will be talking about supplements, is let's make sure we're nailing our basics first off. For me, there's this idea of the Swiss cheese model. I suppose it's a medical idea really, and it's part of the response to coronavirus is where it comes from, but it applies equally well to your nutrition. So if we talk about there's different problems, different issues, different illnesses that can crop up. And that's like the Swiss cheese. So it's a slice of cheese, there's holes in it. So in your day-to-day life, there's little holes, little problems that are going to give you grief, that are going to get through. If we put another layer of Swiss cheese, we block some of them. In this case, maybe we get a really good balanced diet, and that suddenly blocks some of the issues of daily life. So we know that heart disease, diabetes, things that can be protected against by having a really, really good balanced diet. So that's that second layer there of Swiss cheese. It blocks off some of the health problems associated with daily life. Next one then might be the idea of sports nutrition. Again, we've blocked off another one of these holes in our Swiss cheese. So by making sure that we've carbohydrate to fuel our performance and protein to recover afterwards, we're making sure that we've looked after that side of it. So again, we've fewer things getting through to cause us problems in the long run. For me, supplements might be the last piece of Swiss cheese that's thrown on there to just patch up whatever holes are left in our diet after we've got our diet pretty much nailed down and our sports nutrition pretty good. For me, there's two types of supplements, okay? Left-hand side, we've that idea of health supplements. So they're the sort of things that if I was talking to my mother, they'd be the sort of things I'd be talking about. The vitamins, minerals, stuff like that, that everybody has heard of and most people take something day to day. On the right-hand side there, we've that idea of sports supplements. So they're supplements that are specifically designed to improve your performance. And then I've kind of broken those down into two. The ones you might take every single day to improve your performance, and then the ones you'll just take on match day. So we basically have three little areas under those two umbrellas, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So I've taken some ideas. There's no way in the world that I could cover every single supplement you might take, but I'm taking just a handful of the most common ones, and hopefully they'll answer some of your questions. And then if you have a specific question, like I say, throw it in the chat and we'll get to it. So health supplements, vitamin D is probably the big one that I'm going to talk about, omega-3, and then multivitamins. They're the three most common supplements taken by people. So vitamin D, I suppose, has received a bit of press lately. Unfortunately, some of it has been with kind of lunatics who think coronavirus can be prevented by just vitamin D. It's not that simple, but it's at least a nice little hat tip to the fact that vitamin D is really, really important for your body. So it's made by the body in response to sunlight. Okay, so if you're living in Ireland, you're not going to see a whole lot of it in the winter months. If you're living at the equator, you're probably a-okay. Your body's able to make enough of it, okay? We know it's involved in your immune system, it's involved in your nervous system, and there's some really good research that shows it improves your reaction time, it improves your strength, improves your power, and improves your speed, okay? And there's nice research to back that up. So we just need to make sure that our overall levels in our system are kept topped up. So my idea there would be that you might take a vitamin D supplement just during those winter months. So if you're inside at school or at work or university all day and you don't see the sun from morning till evening, that's when the vitamin D might be important. If you're outside in the summertime and seeing sun all the time, it's not required, okay? Omega-3 or fish oils, they're probably the biggest supplement that are taken. where they can be helpful is they can help reduce inflammation. Okay, so swelling, that's sort of an idea. So that obviously has a benefit for your performance, but it has a benefit for your health. So you're a little bit less likely to pick up heart disease, degenerative brain change, stuff like that. So they can be useful in that point of view. They're not going to take them away, but they might reduce your risk slightly. Just one thing there to be mindful of with omega-3 is if one of the ways they help your heart and your circulatory system is they reduce the risk of your blood clotting. So obviously that makes you a little bit less likely to get a blood clot. The flip side of that and the problem with that is if you bleed and you're taking omega-3, you're going to bleed for a little bit longer. So if you're injured and you have, say, bruising, that's a muscle bleeding. So try and avoid taking omega-3 while you're injured in that situation. Or if you're going for surgery, if God forbid you've picked up some sort of an injury or it's a health-related surgery, come off the omega-3 for the couple of weeks beforehand, just so your bleeding can be controlled in surgery. Okay, so just a little side note there with omega-3. Multivitamins, one that kind of think everyone was taking them for a while and they were kind of taking them as this insurance policy just to make sure they were getting their vitamins in. I just worry sometimes that it's a little bit like we're almost carpet bombing. We're just throwing everything and hoping that something sticks. For me, I would prefer to kind of have a look at the diet and see what am I missing and supplement around that. If you are going to take a multivitamin, if you do feel that your diet is missing a little bit, and like I say, we're trying to have that food first approach first. But if you still think there's some holes in your diet, and you think a multivitamin might kind of close off those holes, I'd be advising you to use a water soluble one. Okay, so the likes of Rubex or Barocca or those sort of things that you pop into water. It's just because they're a little bit easier to clear out of your system if you take too many. Whereas if you take a tablet and it contains fat soluble vitamins, your body can't really get rid of them as easily, and you're more likely to have a bit of a bad reaction to it if you were to overdose. That's kind of the three main health supplements. Obviously there's loads more we could go into, but there weren't a whole lot of questions on them, so I'm not going to go into massive detail. But if there was a day-to-day supplement that I think there is benefit to, it's definitely vitamin D. The sports side, the reason you're here, the thing you really want to learn about, I suppose, sports supplements, we've got the two sections, the everyday stuff and the game day stuff, and I'll cover both of those separately. Okay? Well, the first one, the most common one, I get questions about every single day from whoever I'm coaching, protein shakes. Are they necessary? Do I need to take them? Are they going to help me recover? Are they going to help with soreness? We need to understand that all a protein shake is it's just protein, the same as you would get from your food, from what you're eating and drinking. Okay? The only reason it might be useful is it may be convenient. So if you're in a situation where you're traveling a little bit for training or for your gym session, it might be handier to have that protein shake, just mix it up, knock it back, and you've at least made sure that you've got your protein in immediately after training. We're getting that recovery underway a little bit earlier. Okay, it's not something magical. It's not going to suddenly make you stronger or fitter or anything like that. It's just going to block that hole. Okay, so like I say again, we're just trying to fill in those gaps in our nutrition. And if a protein shake does that because you wouldn't be able to get enough protein in otherwise after a training session, that's where it could be useful. Where I see it being useful is for people who are training maybe before college or before work. They've had their breakfast, they've done their gym session. A protein shake can be handy there just to tide them over till they get through the first lecture or two or the first couple of meetings in the day before they eat some solid food. So that's where it could come in useful. Okay. Creatine then, I suppose, is, I know there's a lot of information here tonight, so if you do need at any stage, if you need to stop me, go for it 100%. Just let me know, throw the hand up or throw a question in. There's a lot of information here, so maybe if you're not writing it down, it might some of it might go over your head, but hopefully you pick out the things that are useful. So creatine is probably the most researched sports supplement. It's also the most controversial, okay? And there have always been question marks, kind of people saying, well, is it safe, is it not? The research is fairly clear that it's safe for people who don't have underlying health issues, okay? And that's kind of the go-to line on that, all right? So what we're looking at there is it improves the ability to repeat high-intensity effort. If you sprint, you take a break, you sprint again, you take a break, you sprint again. It's not going to improve your first sprint, but it might improve your second, your third, or your fourth sprint, okay? So your later on efforts. With it, it's an interesting one in that about 80% of people see a benefit to their performance. Okay. So about 10% of people already have enough creatine from their diet. They have enough creatine in their muscle stores. They're not going to see a benefit to taking a supplement. So there's no point in them taking it. About 10% of people will get side effects to creatine. So usually they're gastric side effects, diarrhea, stomach cramps, stuff like that. If you're getting side effects from a supplement, don't take it. It's not giving you enough of a benefit. But if you're in the 80% of people where creatine does have a benefit, then obviously it's something that's worth looking at. All you're looking at there is just a small dose, that 3 to 5 grams a day, every day with carbs. So most people just take it in the morning with their porridge or with their orange juice, with their breakfast or whatever. Just knock it back, take it, job done. You say all it's going to do is, so all this graph is this is your first sprint, and as subsequent sprints, your performance drops off. And you know that yourself. If you go out and sprint as fast as you can for 6 seconds, and I ask you to do it again 10 more times, the last one is going to be worse than the first one. Things are going to drop off. All that happens if we take creatine is we reduce drop off. Okay, so it's still going to drop off. The last one is still going to be a little bit slower than the first one, but we reduce how much of a drop off we see. And where that's going to be useful is in your training. You might be able to do more sprints in a training session, or in the weight room, you might be able to do more reps with the same weight. You might be able to do a few more sets of the same amount of reps. So we're reducing your fatigue, and that's what allows you to get a little bit more in the performance realm there. It's not going to make you stronger or fitter or faster on its own. It allows you to train harder, which hopefully will improve your performance there longer. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense on creatine, because most of the questions I got were around that. I suppose the one question I got was when to take it, and should we kind of take it throughout the season, or just in the off season, or just in part of the season. I think the big thing there is that we take it every day. We don't need to worry about kind of a loading phase. We take it every day, and we take it from the time we kind of come back in pre-season, and we run that right through to the end, till the season ends. Okay, so those 3 to 5 grams all the way through your season. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Someone's throwing a question there. James, do you want to go for that?
I was just wondering, like, what does it kind of, like, how does it make you perform for longer, like at a higher level for longer? Like, what is it that does that with creatine? Like,
okay,
how does it work?
I suppose the real sciencey answer is it helps replenish adenosine triphosphates, and it provides you with a store of phosphate. So I suppose anyone who's done leaving cert biology, the real simple answer for those people is all energy is produced. You've got an adenosine, and it's connected to 3 pieces of phosphate. And the way we produce energy is by breaking those off. Okay, this happens inside in your muscle cells. All the creatine does is it provides us with more phosphates to stick back onto the adenosine triphosphate, so that we can continue that process without having glucose to come back in there. So it's kind of, I know there's a lot of people on the call who are a bit more sciencey minded, so hopefully that kind of answers the question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Sorry, Ferg, go for it there. You have a question as well?
Yeah, I was just wondering, so are you saying that you should take creatine just when we're playing, and then in the off season go off it?
Yeah, I would come off it in the off season, just because there's probably a point with every supplement where you lose the effectiveness, or you lose the feel of having an effect from it. And I think it's worth having a bit of a washout period at some stage throughout the year. So it makes the most sense to have that washout period be your off season. You don't have to, but I think there's no long. I suppose people worry that, is it going to have a side effect? If it does, well, then I'd prefer to come off it for some period of time. The research doesn't show that it will have a side effect, but nobody's ever done a 20-year study on creatine or on any other supplement. So I'd rather just come off it at some period when I'm not training quite as hard. Does that make sense?
Yeah, grand, thanks.
Awesome. So yeah, again there, guys, if anyone does have a question, just feel free to throw a hand up or throw a question in the chat. But yeah, they were the first 2 day-to-day supplements, the protein and the creatine. The third one there, and I suppose beetroot juice kind of falls in a nice area where it's not really a supplement, but it's kind of used as a supplement. It's juice from beetroots. Okay, so it's essentially a foodstuff. So I suppose people have a little bit less fear about it, but there is definitely a huge performance enhancement from it. It improves your blood flow while exercising, which means that you get a little bit more oxygen into the working muscles, which means you run a little bit cleaner. Okay. It also means that you're going to recover a little bit better and you're a little bit less tired as the game goes on. Okay. There's two ways of taking it. So the first one there I have obviously is you can take it 2 to 3 hours before kickoff, just knock back 500 mil of it. Grand. Or we see benefits if you just take it every day. Okay, so it's 1 of your 5 a day in terms of, it can be 1 of your 5 a day, sorry, it's still a vegetable, fruit, whatever. But I suppose if you want to use it, taking it every day, it'll improve performance. Or if you want to take it just on the day, you can take it 2 to 3 hours before kickoff. I suppose, again, it depends on if it's something that some people have trouble, if they have a lot of fruit and veg, their stomach, it doesn't sit as well in their stomach. You might prefer to take it for the whole week and not take it on match day, but that's up to you. In terms of then, so I suppose we've kind of flown through those first couple of sections. So they were your 3 supplements that we're looking at taking every day to improve our performance on match day. Okay, and then there's a couple of supplements that we look at just taking on match day. Okay, so this came up actually in the first of these webinars where we had the conversation. Someone asked the question, sorry, about how caffeine improves performance. All right, and what we know is that it means it's longer before you get tired, and it means you produce a little bit more power. Okay, they seem to be the 2 positive effects. I suppose the negative there is that if you're drinking coffee all the time, if you're having 4 or 5 cups of tea or coffee all throughout the day, you almost build up a little bit of tolerance to caffeine. So that's just something to be aware of. If you're going to use it to improve your performance, you won't get the same bump as somebody who doesn't take caffeine at all from one end of the week to the other and takes it then on match day. It can be taken as a tablet, a chewing gum, a coffee. There's a couple of other ways of taking it, sprays and stuff like that, but the research on them is a little bit less clear in terms of how they improve performance or how much caffeine is in a serving of it. The same with those energy drinks. We very often see that the amount of caffeine that's on the label for those isn't what's actually in the product. So if you're going to use it for improving performance, we're probably going to stay away from those and stick to tablets, chewing gums, or you have a decent idea with coffee, but it's not perfect. So pre-game, you're looking at 3 to 5 milligrams per kilo body weight. So again, you can do the maths for your own body weight there, but if you're 80 kgs, 3 milligrams per kilo is 240 milligrams of caffeine. The high end then is 400 milligrams of caffeine. This was the other thing that came up in the question there the last day where we talked a little bit about caffeine. Somebody asked about what negative effect can it have. So just here on the right-hand side, we have a little graph, and the dotted line is your ability to process information. So your eyes taking in a message, seeing what's in front of you, and your brain making sense of it. Okay. The solid line then is your endurance performance. So what we see here is that at the point where we've improved your visual information processing, there's no benefit yet to endurance. Okay, at that low dose of kind of 1 to 2 milligrams per kilo. If we look at the other end of it, by the time we get way up here to maximizing our performance, maximizing our endurance performance, we actually have a drop off. We've gone back below 0 in terms of our ability to perceive information in front of us. And that's why I said the last day, we want to try and avoid high doses of caffeine, particularly if you're a hooker trying into a line out, if you're going to be kicking a goal, that's going to affect your performance massively if you take huge amounts. So we're looking at somewhere here in this kind of twilight zone. We've improved performance of both of them. We haven't maximized either, but we have a little improvement in both, in your performance of both. Okay, and that kind of fits nicely, that 3 to 4 milligrams per kilo. Okay, so that's caffeine. Someone asked a question, actually, a really nice question. So like I say, some people had the opportunity to submit questions ahead of time, and I've kind of used them to shape our conversation tonight. And this was a really good one that came in, and it kind of got me thinking. So we talked about caffeine, coffee, that sort of stuff. Like, they asked the question of, is it really needed? Can we not just sleep well and eat well and have energy that way? And the simple answer is yes. The simple answer is yes, that there will be an improvement in performance by just getting the basics right. And that's what I want to emphasize with the food first approach. But there is an extra benefit to taking caffeine aside from the tiredness side of things. So if you're tired, you drink coffee, you're less tired. Okay, we know that happens. But there's also an improvement in your endurance performance, in how long it is until you get fatigued within a match situation by just taking caffeine. Okay, and that's where that might come in useful. Okay, that's caffeine. Sorry. Carbohydrates. So we're talking about carbs. Like we said, we need to make sure that we're getting enough carbohydrate in the day before and the day of the match to allow for a really good performance. We're also looking though, can we top it up in game? Because we only have a finite amount of stores for carbohydrate. So all we're looking at is those carb drinks, whatever one you want, it doesn't really matter. Just sipping on those can be useful. I would try and dilute them. Okay, so I'd toss out half of it and fill half of it with water, just so it's not so sweet and it's a little bit easier on your stomach to absorb that carbohydrate. Okay, so they have a place throughout the warm-up, throughout the game, just to be sipping on it. Obviously a little bit more challenging, and we don't know what way it's going to be when things come back after COVID in terms of access to water bottles, but I would be looking at every player should probably have a bottle of water and a bottle of carbohydrate. Okay, so like I say there, that's your Powerades, your Lucozades, whatever. Just one note on that is try to avoid it early on in the day. So don't wake up in the morning and have a bottle of it with your breakfast or before you arrive at the pitch. Try and leave it until the warm-up starts so that you don't get a little bit of a crash effect off of carbohydrate. Okay. Els, I think, are really, really useful at halftime. Again, like all of these things, don't try it for the first time at halftime in a match. Try it in training first. But I think they're really useful in terms of getting a little bit more carbohydrate into your system that's easily absorbed, that can get you through that second half. Okay. Okay, so that's kind of the details on supplements. The X's and O's of what to take, when to take, how to take. And I know there's a couple of questions will probably come on the back of it. There's a couple of questions I still need to answer. But it's a kind of a good time in, as we come towards the end of this conversation, supplement safety. Okay. And very often we find that what's on the label back of the product isn't what's actually in the bottle. Okay. So if these things haven't been tested, haven't been drug tested, haven't come up to a certain standard in terms of their production, they may not have in them what they should have. And okay, where this is really important, obviously, it's important from a health point of view for everybody, but it's important particularly for those people in the group who are likely to play at any sort of representative level. So whether it's a Leinster A team or an under-20s team or whatever, that are going a little bit further than maybe just the basic club level, there's a possibility for you to be drug tested, and there's a possibility if you've taken a supplement that was contaminated for you to fail a drugs test. Okay, and that's a 2-year ban. There's pretty much no conversation there. Okay, so 2 websites that I think are really, really useful, and if you have been asleep for the last 20 minutes and just woke up now, you could probably just write down these 2 websites and you're going to get an awful lot out of them if you haven't used them yet. So the first one, examine.com, it's just a group of scientists who came together who review all the research on supplements. So if someone asked me a question about a supplement that I haven't heard of before, because obviously there's a lot of them, I'll go there first. So I'll go to examine.com and it will just give you what is the research, what's the research say about something, is it effective or is it not? Okay. The second one then is informsport.com. So everything that's sold in Ireland that was drug tested will be on that website. Okay, so you say you buy a bag of protein powder, you look at the back, there's a batch code and there's a code written on the back. You go into informsport.com, you type in that code and it will tell you whether that batch was drug tested or not. And if it was, well, then you know it's safe to take. It hasn't been contaminated with something that could cause a positive drugs test. Okay, so those 2 websites, I can't stress enough how useful they are. Examine.com will tell you whether a supplement is useful. Informed Sport will tell you, has it been drug tested? If it hasn't been drug tested, you really shouldn't be taking it if you're playing sport. Okay. There's a couple of things that were on the Irish Sports Council website. And after these webinars, we'll send out all of these slides anyway, so you can have a proper look at it. But I suppose one that kind of jumped out at me is this one. The idea of if you're taking a supplement and you're at risk of being drug tested, you need to do research. You need to just make sure that the supplement is effective and is useful for you, and that it's been drug tested. And if you do those two things and record that you have gone to the trouble of doing that research, if you were unfortunate enough to turn up a drugs test, they'd be a little bit more lenient on you. Okay, so as an athlete, you need to take responsibility for what's in your body at whatever level you're playing. So just make sure that if you do your research, screenshot your research, hold on to it just in case something bad would happen. Okay. I suppose the big thing to take away from the don'ts here is don't just take stuff because someone else is taking it. Okay. Don't just take stuff because someone told you, yeah, do your research. Okay. That's kind of the majority of the conversation. Just a couple of questions that were submitted ahead of time. So I'm just going to rattle through them. And then if anyone does have any questions in the audience, they're more than welcome to throw them at me. But hopefully at this stage, we've kind of covered day-to-day supplements, day-to-day performance supplements, match day supplements, and now obviously, like I say, supplement safety there at the end. So a couple of questions came in. First one here was, how consistent should you be when it comes to taking supplements? Okay. I think my diet's pretty good, so I'm only going to use supplements when my diet's working on that. So I've taken that question kind of in two parts. The second part of it, I think, is massive, and everyone could learn something from it. Make sure your day-to-day nutrition is bang on. So that food first approach, get that right, and then look, well, what supplement can I add on top of that would fill any gaps I have. In terms of consistency in taking supplements, I think, like I said there, when Ferg asked the question, cycle off every supplement for a short period of time, maybe just for a month, just to make sure that there's no side effects of it, and so you maybe feel the best benefit out of it. So like that, vitamin D, I said everyone should probably be taking, you just take it during the winter, okay? You cycle off it in the summer. If you're taking creatine for your performance, you might just take it in season, okay? So just that little bit of, take some period of time in the year where you're not taking a supplement, okay? Like I say, chicken Swiss cheese, just fill those holes. And this idea of being your own scientist, okay? Take something, did it fix the problem, or did it close the hole in my diet that I expected it to? If it did, brilliant, keep going. If it didn't, get rid of it, okay? Experiment a little bit with it, with what you're taking, okay? A couple of questions came in, and I've kind of tried to paraphrase all of them here. Is there anything in particular to take when you're trying to change your weight, so lose weight or gain weight? And anyone who's at that first conversation we had on nutrition might remember my seesaw and that idea of the only thing that decides whether you gain or lose weight is calories in and calories out. Unfortunately, there's no way around that, okay? Supplements that kind of say they're fat loss supplements. I remember a dietitian I worked with a couple of years ago, and he said, if a fat loss supplement works, it is definitely illegal, okay? It's some form of illegal substance, okay? There's a load of them that are in existence, but there's some sort of a negative, some sort of a negative side effect, okay? So if it works, it's illegal. If it's legal, it doesn't work, okay? So definitely from a fat loss point of view, there is no supplement that the research shows is going to improve fat loss to any great degree. On the weight gain side of things, it's just about consuming more calories and training hard. It might be a case that you're not eating enough, and getting in a carbohydrate supplement or a protein supplement might bump up your calories a little bit. In that case, they may have a role to play, okay? But they're probably not going to make a massive difference otherwise to muscle gain. Okay. Similar sort of a question was just on that idea, if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to lose fat, is it worth taking protein, okay? I think, again, food first idea, right? And then if it's a case that, well, I know I've got my diet pretty good, but I need to make sure my protein's a little bit higher so I'm not losing muscle mass, that's potentially where a protein supplement might come in as being somewhat useful, okay? But by and large, you probably want to make sure you're getting enough food in so that you're getting enough vitamins and minerals in so that you can then be as healthy as possible when losing fat, okay? Really nice question came in here, kind of a specific one, but there's probably a few people on the call who benefit from it. Any daily vitamins for kind of under 18s, and in this case, a girl? I would say number one is your food first thing. Just get that nutrition absolutely nailed. I think definitely vitamin D in wintertime, particularly for under 18s, because particularly for kind of that 16, 17, 18-year-old group who are studying, potentially walk to school and it's dark enough, get home from school after study and it's dark and they just literally don't see the sun. So I think vitamin D is massive. And like I said before, with females, I would ask the question, if you're a female athlete, of your doctor, where's my iron levels at the moment? If they're not good, then do I look at a supplement? I wouldn't just randomly supplement and hope for the best. Okay. A lot of people ask the question about BCAAs. So this is kind of I think the second last one. And I'm going to go into a tiny bit of detail on BCAAs just because there were so many questions about them. Okay. BCAAs are just branched chain amino acids. Okay. So they're a particular group of amino acids that make up protein, but it's only 3 of them. Okay? This is my least favorite supplement in the whole wide world because I think it's the most overhyped supplement and it has the least effect of almost any supplement in the world. Okay? 3 amino acids, the branched chain amino acids, they control muscle protein synthesis. So if you don't have them, you can't build muscle. But you're going to get them every time you eat any form of protein. You're going to get those 3 amino acids anyway. Okay, so if you have enough protein, branched chain amino acids make absolutely no difference. You can't accelerate a process beyond its limit. Okay, and there was a really good kind of a silly little diagram. This was actually in a research paper published there last year. So I decided to throw it in. Think of food, okay? It breaks down into, we'll take protein. It breaks down into normal amino acids and the 3 branched chain amino acids. Okay, so there's 20 odd amino acids. They break down into normal amino acids and the 3 exciting BCAAs that everyone gets excited about, okay? These 3 basically decide how fast we can, they accelerate the rate of muscle growth, okay? So the way to think about them is they're like coffee for your body, which is the construction worker, to build the wall. Okay, if we didn't have any of these, he wouldn't have got out of bed that morning. Okay, but by having those, it allows us to make sure we're using the rest of the amino acids to build the wall. That's all that's happening. If we throw more amino acids, we're just throwing more coffee at this poor guy. He can't go any faster. He can't make any more walls. He can't build anymore. We can't get more builders in. Okay, there's one builder. He's got 1 cup of coffee. It doesn't matter if I give him 100 cups of coffee. He still has the same amount of bricks and he has to try and build that wall. So giving more branched chain amino acids, throwing a big load of trucks in of more BCAAs isn't going to accelerate that process. Okay, so hopefully if someone asks you about BCAAs again, you'll have this answer and you'll have a little bit of an understanding in your head of why I don't think they're massively useful. Yes, if you don't have enough of them, you're going to have problems. You won't be able to build muscle. But once you get to that level of having enough protein, it doesn't become an issue anymore. Okay. People ask this question on the combos and stuff. I'm not big on answering questions on combos of supplements because I don't think it really makes a difference. I think you have to look at each supplement on its own. So like I say, BCAAs, I wouldn't bother. I think they're a waste of money. Creatine, I would say, yeah, 100%. Go for it. There's research behind it. Beta-alanine is actually kind of similar to creatine in that it increases the body's ability to repeat high intensity efforts. Okay, it works via a slightly different mechanism. So like James' question earlier, creatine gives you the raw materials to perform. Beta-alanine clears away the waste products. Okay, so they're just tipping on different sides of the limiting factor. Okay, so look at things as individuals rather than as a combination of supplements. Okay, 2 to go. Difference between whey and casein protein. Is there one better than the other? I would say no. I think you're just kind of getting overexcited about differences. I would say get your whey protein if you're taking a protein supplement. That'll do the job. People got excited about casein that they thought it was going to stop muscle loss while you're asleep. I've yet to see anybody who went to bed as a bodybuilder and woke up looking like a marathon runner. I don't think it happens to any sort of significant degree. And we know that we need a little bit of protein turnover, a little bit of protein break to build more muscle. Sorry. So getting excited about taking casein instead of whey protein is probably a waste of time. If you're going to take a protein supplement, take whey. You're laughing. Okay. Right. All right. There's 2 there actually. Sorry. Second last one. We're nearly there. Someone asked a question on collagen protein. We know that hydrolyzed collagen can be useful for your skin and for your joints. So I wasn't really sure on what the question was. So if whoever asked the question is on the call, you might want to if you want to throw a little bit more info, go for it. But the gist of it was you can get hydrolyzed collagen. It can be beneficial for your skin and for joints. There's also another thing called undenatured collagen, and a smaller dose of that can help with rheumatoid arthritis. Okay. I think people have kind of mixed the two up.
Unnatured collagen, small dose of it can help with arthritis.
So I think there's a case where people have kind of mixed the two up, and are using hydrolyzed collagen to try and help joint pain. I don't think there's a whole lot of research to back that up. So that's a question there if anyone wants to throw anything more on that. But that was kind of it in terms of the research on collagen. And then the last one there, someone asked a question on, are greens any use? I think they're grand as an insurance policy, similar to the multivitamin. I would prefer if you just make sure you're nailing your vitamins, or sorry, you're nailing your food to get your vitamins. Where they might be useful is if you're going on holidays or something, and you know that you're going to be eating pizza and takeaways for a week. If you want to take a tub of greens with you and just knock back one of those, and at least you feel like you've got something green into your system every day, that's where they might be useful, but not a whole lot beyond that. Okay, so that was kind of all the questions that we kind of got in. So hopefully they've kind of answered most of the questions that were submitted ahead of time. Like I say, just to wrap up, you're thinking about supplements in terms of that Swiss cheese thing, just fill in the gaps. Make sure you've got your fundamentals right. Make sure you get your balanced diet. Then think about your sports nutrition. And finally, your supplements are your cherry on top. And the whole time, while you're looking at supplements, while you're considering taking them or not taking them, think about those two websites, examine.com if you want to get an idea of what the supplement does, and informsport.com if you want to look at whether it's safe to take or whether it's been tested or not. So look, I hope that kind of has answered a few questions. Hopefully you've got a little bit of information there that might be some use to people. And hopefully you've got something that you can take away and use tomorrow. If anyone has anything they want to kind of throw as an addition there, or another question that I didn't get to, go for it. But like I say, thanks very much for those who did throw questions in ahead of time.
Steve.
Yes.
Just in terms of, I know the way you said like 1 gram a day of omega-3s and then like 5 of creatine. I can't remember what the exact one was. On the bottles, there's like different, like I found there's different like measurements of what you have to take. At the moment, I was taking 3 tablets of creatine a day.
Yeah.
To like get to a certain amount. Is that dependent on the person, or is it like go by the dosage on the bottle?
To be honest, I think with creatine, there's very few people are going to go as high as are going to go any higher than 5 milligrams or 5 grams per day. I don't think there's anyone who's going to be that massive that they're going to take a whole lot more than that. So I think most people are going to fit into that 3 to 5 grams. They're probably, the two supplements, the omega-3 and the creatine, are probably the two that don't really matter a whole lot on body weight.
Okay. Cheers.
Steve, can I ask you one on just in terms of like how experimental to be? In terms
Great
of
question, go on.
What brands to use and how often to use, and kind of when to go off a certain one, or is there any point really? Like if something's working for you, don't change it, or is there better out there, or that kind of like
that's kind of the really exciting area with supplements, where you can drive yourself crazy or you can get a massive amount of benefit out of it. I think, to be honest, I would look at, so the brands part of it, I would kind of try and stick to the couple of brands that you know are drug tested. So like I say, even if you just go on Inform Sport, you'll kind of see the same ones coming up the whole time. Optimum Nutrition tend to test most of their stuff. Maximus will tend to test most of their stuff. Kinetica tend to test most of their stuff. Whereas, say, My Protein, for example, might not test as much, bar their elite range. So I try and kind of stick with a company that kind of suits you. And then in terms of different types of supplements, I think I would look at, you nearly need to do a needs analysis on yourself and sit down, well, what am I going to get the most benefit from? So if you think it's a case that, for example, that idea of high intensity efforts, I need to make more of those throughout a match, then you can look at, well, what are the two that fix that problem for me? Creatine and beta-alanine. I would try one of them for a while. So you might tip away with creatine for a chunk of time, maybe 4 months. You might go the first half of the season, for example. kind of have an idea, record your training sessions as you kind of should be doing anyway, and keep an eye on, well, am I getting stronger? Do I think it's working? And then I would look at, okay, well, after Christmas, maybe I won't go creatine, but I'll try beta alanine, and I might tip away with that. Well, did I get an improvement from that? So hopefully that kind of answers your question. But I would give a supplement a decent amount of time to find out does it work, and I would slowly add things. So if you're happy that if you've been taking creatine for the last 3 years and it works brilliantly for you, I wouldn't stop doing that. I'd try something in addition to that first.
Thanks.
Sorry, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Do you know the way like you're bringing up, or you're saying at the start of the creatine slide, you're saying 3 to 5 grams or whatever per day, and obviously cycling in and out of it. So like, you know, like you can obviously naturally get creatine through like dairy or like steak or fish and stuff. Like on average, like if you're like had like a pretty varied diet and like it was decent or somewhat decent anyway, like through diet alone, like how much do you think the average Joe could like actually incorporate creatine through their diet into their actual natural diet without a supplement?
Off the top of my head, I'm not entirely sure, but I know there was a study done on exactly that, and I'm almost certain it was about 2 grams a day was what you would get from a reasonably, I think they kind of went a standard American diet was kind of what the study looked at. So it was kind of looking at red meat maybe 3 to 4 times a week as their kind of their meat, and that was where they were getting the majority of their creatine from. But I can't see it being a whole lot more than 1 to 2 grams a day for most people.
All right, cool. Yeah, cheers.
Steve, I'll take a number between 1 and 34.
27.
3.
That's so creepy. I had 27 in my own head.
22. 3.
What'd you say, Bella?
3.
What number, Bella?
3.
Where's that?
13. Great. Has to be number 3. What's the prize, Tom?
Again, you've won a prize. Sorry, my maths wasn't great.
Bella, I bet your password to everything is Bella number 3.
No, it's Bella 3.
Just to be clear, Bella, McDonald's isn't classed as a supplement.
Right.
McDonald's isn't classed as a supplement.
Are Easter eggs?
Supermax better. Yeah, it's Easter eggs.
Sparrow by me is doing 9 Easter eggs for €9, Bella, if you're looking.
Ooh, give me 18.
Just to touch on that, Steve-O, there have been, it hasn't been for a while, but there have been drug tests in the All-Ireland League, so I'd say some of these feckers could be in trouble.
I was going to ask that. Has there ever been one?
Yeah, there has.
I wanted to ask a question, but Steve was on a roll there.
There has been.
Surely there hasn't been. Like,
yeah, give me the juice, Steve.
But like, surely you have to look like you're on steads, get tested for steads.
Yeah,
all right. I just asked because I've never heard of it before.
Test used for a brain. That was brilliant. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't too sure on the old supplements. I was like, geez, but some good stuff there. I think probably shining the remarks from 2 weeks ago are still there. You know, the shining remarks that you made then. Hey, turn off your mic, you mongo. So look, if anyone else has any questions before we go, just shout there, guys. Otherwise, if you don't know, Steve-O has shares in a beetroot juice company, so he's hoping everyone goes out and buys about 400 liters on it.
Does Steve have a mullet? That's my question.
Any more questions, Megan? You've got a prize. I don't know what it is yet. I'll have to figure it out along with the other ones, but I've got some gear over in the uni, so I'll get you something.
Do you have a mullet? Yeah, show us the mullet.
Who?
Steve.
He's not got a mullet.
Ah,
Steve, where's the wedding ring?
Don't hear anything about the mustache from Steve.
Okay, guys. Steve-O, thanks a million. Drop Steve-O. Thank you, please, before you go.
Thanks, Steve.
Cheers, Steve.
Thank you.
Guys.
Give us 8 minutes
for your time.
Good to see you, Darren.